Hi, in this video I'll discuss the concept of tuning to A440. Now if this is a term that you haven't heard before, it's certainly a concept worth understanding. Have you ever tried to play along with a favorite song of yours and you just can't seem to match your guitar's tuning to the tuning of the song? Now you know your guitar's in tune because you tuned it up, you may have even used a tuner to tune it up, but it just doesn't seem like it fits in with the song you're trying to play along with. That's because that song might not be an A440, meaning it doesn't comply with the standard tuning that was set up by the music industry decades ago. What A440 means is that they selected a note of A and it resonates at 440 Hertz, which means it resonates 440 times per second. The specific A in reference is located here on the guitar. It's the 5th fret of the 1st string, or the 10th fret of the 2nd string. And what does it mean to tune to A440? What the A is a specific note on the piano. It's actually an A in the 4th octave of the piano. Now they've designated that that particular note should be tuned 440 Hertz, meaning that that note vibrates 440 times per second. It's a particular frequency. Now when you set that frequency standard, you're actually setting the standard for the entire chromatic scale, because all notes in the chromatic scale are going to be in relation to that A. So when we talk about A440, we're not just talking about the note of A, we're talking about the whole chromatic scale that's set as a standard set of frequencies. Here's a chart that shows all the notes in the chromatic scale, starting with the A440 in the middle. So what would happen is if this A440 was changed, for example, in olden times in classical music, they used to use something different than A440. And in fact, there's other countries today that use other standards than A440. What this means is, their A, for example, if they didn't use A440, let's say they used A435. So their A would be like in this region here. Now this means that their whole chromatic scale would shift proportionately. So their G would be different than the G that we're used to. The G sharp would be different than the G sharp we're used to. Same for the G. And same for all these different notes in their chromatic scale. So just because we use the A to talk about the frequency of this particular note doesn't mean that we're not referring to the whole chromatic scale. So when we set up for A440, we're setting up for one particular chromatic scale that is going to be the standard for us to use. Now this has nothing to do with standard tuning on a guitar. For example, if we tune our guitar to standard tuning, what we call E, A, D, G, B, E. So the 6 strings of the guitar, this is called standard tuning. Let's say, for example, we changed this tuning. We did a drop D tuning. So we took our E bass note and we made it now a D. We're still in 440 because all of our notes are in proportion to that A that's in 440. So just because we're changing away from a standard tuning on a guitar doesn't mean we're changing away from 440. It's also important to note that an octave is a doubling of the hertz of a particular frequency. So like A is 440 here, but the next A that you're going to hit is double that. It's 880. Same way if you go lower. So the next A in the lower direction is going to be half of 440, so it's 220. So the chromatic scale is proportionate to that. All these different notes have proportions that stay in line with however you're going to tune that A. So if you tune this to 440, that's why everything else shifts proportionately. Now it doesn't go in a linear fashion. For example, these aren't round numbers for the frequencies of all these other notes, but it just so happens when you get to the next octave it's exactly double, and an octave lower is exactly half. Now here's a tuner that I use for my guitar. It's just a typical tuner, but you can see the designation right in the middle there. It's 440. So that designation applies to all the strings. So no matter if I'm tuning an E string, I'm looking for that meter to go to 440. Now it doesn't mean that the E is 440 Hertz. It just means that 440 is the designation for the entire chromatic scale. So if I hit A, it still goes to 440. Because I'm looking for, or D, it's looking for 440 in that scale, which is standard for all the notes. popular songs today that are not in A440. Meaning, if you tune up your guitar to standard tuning in A440 and try to play along with these songs, you won't be able to do it because it'll be somewhere in between keys that your guitar has. Now, it doesn't mean they didn't perform the song in 440. That means that they may have performed it in 440, but certain recording techniques were applied later on so that they shifted the pitch of the song one way or another, maybe to prevent people from copying it easily. One particular example is The Doors' Light My Fire. If you try to play along with that song, you'll see that you'll have to retune your guitar in order to do so. There are other songs that I'm going to list in the text of this part of the video, so you can try it for yourself and see if you can play along with these particular songs.